Right? So I'm not sure if this is what to make out of this difference. So, so we'll leave that aside. Anyways, we're starting Perek Zayin, chapter 7, in Mesilas Yesharim, titled Bibeir Chelkei HaZehirus, an explanation of the various divisions, right? Or they translate elements, but it's divisions of Zrizus, of alacrity, or zeal, right? So last time, what did we learn? Let's just summarize. What did we learn? We covered a few things. We covered the idea that there's a difference between, that Zrizus primarily has two steps, right? Is the purpose of Zrizus is to get to the thing as soon as possible, and once you begin it, to make sure to complete it, right? Two parts of Zrizus. That's number one. Number two is we learned that Zrizus primarily counteracts laziness, right? And laziness is an extension of our natural tendency to be a body at rest, right? And then we also talked about the fact that there's more than one laziness. There's physical laziness, right? Activity laziness, and then there's mental laziness, right? And then it's much harder to overcome physical laziness than it is to overcome mental laziness, because you don't really recognize when your mind is not functioning at 100%. And so it's easier to just go with the flow. And then he also talked about that because we are a body interested to be at rest, so therefore we have to be kind of suspect of any avoidance theories that we come up with, right? If we're coming up with an excuse not to do something, we should double check to see if that's we might have a very logical explanation for it, but we should double check to see if that logical explanation is really not just in an extension of our desire to just avoid, right? And then he said that the problem is with laziness is that if you don't actually do certain things at 100%, then it will snowball into some disaster, into some actual, it's not a question of only missing some things, you will actually get to, create problems down the road, right? So that's what we were talking about in the basic idea of Zrizus. Now he's going to talk about the Bibeir Chelkei HaZehirus, right? This is Zrizus. Zrizus is divided further into categories, and really, what are the categories? This is what he says: Chelkei HaZehirus Shnaim, the divisions of Zrizus. Am I saying Zrizus or Zehirus? Because I feel like Zrizus. The Chelkei HaZrizus Shnaim. The divisions of Zrizus are two. Echad koydem ha'ma'aseh. One is before the action. Ve'echad acharei kain. And one is after that. After what? Okay, well, let's see. Koydem hascholas ha'ma'aseh. Before the beginning of the action, hu shelo yachmitz ha'odam es ha'mitzvah. A person should not let the mitzvah become chometz. Right? Don't let it rise. In other words, don't let it sit idle, but rather grab it, right? Ela behagiyaz ma'ano, when the time of the mitzvah arrives, oy behizdamna lefanav, or when the mitzvah happens before him, oy ba'aloisa b'machshavtoi, or when it kind of he gets inspired by it in his thoughts. Right? Imaher yochish, he should hurry and rush his masehu, his actions, lechas, but to grab onto it, v'lasai, so he saw, and to do the mitzvah, v'lo yaniach zman lizman, and do not leave it from time to time. She is shabbat being time, that there should be no time between the thought and the deed. Right? So again, let's just drill down into this sentence a little bit. So what is the sentence? It's saying that there are three types of mitzvahs. There's mitzvahs which have a certain time, right? Be'agia zman, right? Zman kriya shema. Oh, as soon as the zman arrives, take care of it, right? That's one type of a mitzvah. That's a time-bound mitzvah, right? So when the time-bound mitzvah, do it right away. There's another mitzvah is nothing to do with time, but behizdamna lefonav, a mitzvah that appears before him. So I don't know, if somebody's walking down the street and something's happening down the road, he sees a neighbor that needs help with carrying a package, whatever, he runs to it. He doesn't, shouldn't I don't know. By the time that second delay, and something comes up and the mitzvah flies away, right? And the other one is ba'aloisa b'machshavtoi. What is that? I don't even know what that is. But I guess I don't know what that is, actually. He's saying stam, a mitzvah that's not really, what's the word? Which mitzvah is he referring to when he says a mitzvah that appears in my head?
I wanted to go.
Meaning just randomly.
Right. Give some tzedakah.
What?
Give some tzedakah, I don't know.
I'm inspired. I was inspired to do something. Right? I mean, give some tzedakah. I don't know if that. Okay, I'm not sure. We'll come back to that if we get an idea. Somehow, I don't know why, but this bothers me, because again, I'm assuming in an ideal world, right? This person is not sitting idly, right? It's not us. He's not. I mean, so let's talk about Ramchal, right? I don't think he was sitting there. I wonder what mitzvah I should do. I just don't see it. He was either learning or there was a priority. Even for most of us, we're not living in the life of, I wonder what I should do. It's more like, I wonder which of the things that are desperately screaming for my attention that I should pick to do first. It's not so much like, I wonder if I should
It can be, well, I haven't done, I don't know, tzedakah in a while. It's been a week I haven't have an opportunity to help somebody financially. Like I've been teaching, I've been preparing food, I've been, carrying packages with a neighbor, but I just haven't had a chance to give tzedakah.
Right. Okay, maybe somehow. Okay, but Allah is machshavta.
Yeah, like for example, like let's say simple one, like snow, remove snow from the shoe. Just in the morning, the problem is to go remove snow from the shoe. Like,
but that's bizdamna on the front. That's that one that occurs
before it melts, right?
Yeah, but it's not exactly like.
And that's not ba'alois machshavta. So I understand time-bound mitzvah. I understand mitzvah that occurs in front of you. What's this ba'alois machshavta? Right? You invented it.
Yeah.
So there is a mitzvah that you invent.
You don't have to. Like it's not your job. It's like you just.
No, that's bizdamna lefanav. It's still that's still bizdamna lefanav. This is an invented mitzvah. This is right. This is you invented this mitzvah. It didn't exist and you invented it. What is a mitzvah that you invent? Okay. Anyways, right. Moving on. So so these three types of mitzvahs: as soon as it is invented, or as soon as it appears, or when the time arrives, jump to do it. Okay. Now there's another question, right? There's another question. What about before the time arrives? Meaning, okay, Kriya Shema starts at 6 a.m., right? Should I make, okay, so now, if I want to be Mekayim the mitzvah, as soon as the Zman arrives, maybe I should go to sleep at 11 p.m. Or do I say, well, right now, there is no morning mitzvah of Kriya Shema, so I don't have to deal with the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. Right now, it's not my responsibility. I don't have to think about it, right? Or do you say, no, but what's going to happen, right? So does your Zrizus begin only when the mitzvah arrives, or does your Zrizus begin even in the prep stages before it arrives? Okay, we'll think about that one. Okay, let's move on. Kiki ain't sakona kisakonosoi, because there's no danger like it. What's the it? Time, right? There's no danger like time. Asher hine kol rega shemischadesh. Every moment that is renewed, that is meaning that's brought into existence, yuchel is chadash ezu ikav l'maisa atov. With every moment that's created, with it there is more opportunities for prevention of a good deed. Right? Every new moment creates new challenges. Every new moment brings with it new challenges. So don't delay. So that's number one. Okay, so there is this, famous. I think it's famous with Rabbi Yitzchak Kutner, right? The Pachad Yitzchak. He talks about mitzvah boliyot chal tachmitzena. Right, there's this idea that if mitzvah comes to your hand, don't let it become chametz. Right, so he asks the question: what do you mean, don't let it become chametz? Chametz is, if you don't do a mitzvah right away, Okay, so you didn't do a mitzvah right away. Let's say, like the Ramchal is saying, you're going to get prevented from doing it. So you lost the mitzvah, right? But if you let the matzah rise, it's not just that it's only no longer matzah, it's also chometz, and you actually got an aveira, right? Mm-hmm. So why do we compare, right, lack of Zrizus to mitzvah bo liyodcha tachmitzena, right? Mitzvah comes to your hand, don't, right, that, and we learned this from V'shamruas hamatzos, right? You have to guard the matzos, because if you don't guard the matzos, it will become chometz. So therefore, and the matzos reads like mitzvahs, V'shamruas hamitzvahs. So therefore, if a mitzvah comes to your hand, don't let it become chometz. So Rabbi Kutner asks, wait a minute, that's not a good parable. If you don't do the mitzvah right away, okay, so it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be ideal. As long as in the end you got it done, okay, so you got it done. You're right. You shouldn't have allowed to put yourself into a problem where you could have lost the mitzvah, but eventually you did it. So if you did it, so you shouldn't be a problem. So why do we call this otach mitzena? So he has a beautiful, profound thought. Is that, and this is the idea of, again, of this, we have a concept, right, that we have to do b'chipazon, right? Especially Pesach Mitzrayim, have to be b'chipazon, has to be a rushed experience, right? Mm-hmm. So he says an idea that something that's rushed, meaning it's not a question of rushing, of doing it fast. The point is, if I do an action, right, in the fastest possible way that I could do it, then that action is no longer bound by time, right? It's true that it was located within time, right? Anything that I do, because by virtue of me being located within time, so anything that I do is bound by time. But if I did an action in the fastest possible way that I could have done it, right? In the most optimal way that I could have done it, this is what I mean. Right? So then, had there been no time, I would still do this action in exactly the same way. Meaning, when I do the action in its most optimal way, I am doing it in time, but I'm not really doing it in time. It's outside of time. Okay. Right? On the other hand, when I say, okay, I'll do it in a minute, I'll do it slower, right? So then I'm putting the time factor into the fulfillment of that mitzvah, right? And being that the whole idea of Mitzrayim, right, is Chodesh Elochem, right, is this, that Jews are above time, right? The whole point of the spirituality that we are able to reach is to really be above time, right? Not Tachas HaShemesh, like the Kohela says. We're supposed to be a spiritual thing, is supposed to be above the Shemesh, right? Above time. So technically, we have the ability to rise above time. How do you rise above time? By doing things that have nothing to do with time. I'm doing this mitzvah as soon as it arrives in the best possible way. So then that mitzvah is not time bound. This is me. What's the word? Exercising my spirituality to as much as I can within this physical world, right? So therefore, I'm rising above time. As soon as I say, okay, maybe in a little bit. So then I actually introduce an element of chometz, so to speak, into the mitzvah, because now I just transformed that mitzvah from being a timeless activity into a time-bound activity, which is like the biggest yerida that it could possibly possess. Okay, so I mean, it's a beautiful, I think, amazing, beautiful word. Okay, so continue. Right, so we're continuing this idea, right? This is the Zrizus before the mitzvah, grabbing it right away. Right? So this is when Shlomo Melech was to become king, that David says to Benayahu, "V'hoiraditem oisoi el Gichon," and bring him down to Gichon, right? Ve'ona Benayahu amen ken yomar Hashem. Right? Okay, and so he writes this, ken yomar Hashem. Omru zel shoinem, Rabbi Pinchas b'shem Rabbi Chanan b'tzipori, v'aloi kvar ne'amar hinei ben noilad loch, hu yeh ish menucha, ela harbe kategori yamnu mekan ve'ad gichoy. Right? There are many accusers from here until Gichon. Right? So even though it was already prophesied that he's going to have a son named Shlomo, and that his kingdom will be solidified, and his menucha means he's not going to have any problems, right? In his kingdom, he's going to be set. So he's already has the assurances. Why is David wants to make sure, telling his general, go bring down Shlomo as soon as possible, right? Because he says many things can occur in between. We don't, right? Okay, I mean that's the basic idea, right? So this idea that even with all the assurances, right, and all the guarantees, anything can happen. That's what we're learning from this story. We're learning from the story that you have to do whatever it takes to get things moving. Okay, getting whatever it takes to get things moving. Yeah. Okay. So therefore, our sages warned us and commanded us from right? You should guard the matzos. Mitzvah boliyotcha tach mitzano. A mitzvah comes to your hand. Do not let it become chametz. V'omru, and they also said, Lo'olam yagdim odom l'dvar mitzvah. A person should rush to dvar mitzvah. Shelefishi yigdimo bechira l'tziira. Right. So this is a crazy part that we have the two daughters of Light, right? The bechira, the older one, and the younger one, right? So I mean, even though they were, they weren't doing a mitzvah, right? They weren't doing a mitzvah, but in their mind, they thought, right? And because in her mind, I mean, again, it's a catch-22, but let me say it one part at a time. But because in her mind, she jumped at the opportunity to go first, right? Now, so therefore, she was rewarded that her descendants were Megayer and joined with Klal Yisrael sooner than the other, right? Meaning that the Moavi, right, was from Rus and etc., right? Mm-hmm. So her Zrizus to do the Aveira, which she thought was a mitzvah, is rewarded in her future generations. The problem is, of course, is that her Zrizus is also is also a reason of criticism, right? That she wasn't hesitant. That her hesitancy maybe would have been better in her case, because maybe if she hesitated, she would have reconsidered. Possibly, but then she went ahead, right? So with then Moav, she wasn't embarrassed by it, right? So she called her son Moav, like she did, right? So it's in a situation where the same action can be both criticized and rewarded at the same time. Yeah? Okay, moving on. Right? And they also said Zrizim are the ones who rush to do mitzvahs. Zrizim magdimin lemitzvahs. So again, he's bringing the sources from Gemara that have this idea that Zrizus means what? To jump at the opportunity. A person is allowed to run to a dvar mitzvah even on Shabbos. Okay, so what does that mean? Right, there's a story of Abaye. Abaye sees all these Rabbonim running on Shabbos, and he thought that they were not doing the right thing, because on Shabbos you're not supposed to be running. Why aren't you supposed to be running? Because that's like a weekday activity, right? On weekday you run around. On Shabbos you're supposed to stroll. You're supposed to be casually enjoying every moment, right? And here you have these people running. So then he learned that no, if you're going to a dvar shir, a shul, you're allowed to run, right? Mm-hmm. You're allowed to run. So Why are you allowed to run? Why are you allowed to run?
It was a mitzvah.
So therefore what?
To get there fast to start engaging in it.
Okay, so why are you allowed to run?
Like he wouldn't approve running for a kiddush.
I'm saying, so I'm cooking for Shabbos for a mitzvah also. I'm saying, obviously can't do that, right? I mean, okay, it's not a good comparison because that's a midaraisa and that's not even derabbanan. It's like udin dechol. It's a weekday activity, right? The answer is probably that right. The reason why we don't run, because we run towards physical things usually. On weekday we are rushing towards our jobs. We are rushing because of the weekday suyita, right?
Mm-hmm.
On Shabbos we're supposed to be at peace with ourselves, right? But if we're running to Dvar Mitzvah, then that running is not an extension of our physical activity. It's an extension of our spiritual activity. So it becomes, it's not a contradiction, right? It's not a contradiction to Shabbos because it's part of the mitzvah, right? It's a spiritual activity. It's not a physical activity. It's a different type of running. Okay, ubemedrash omru hu yinagenu almus. This is another amazing medrash, right? This is what we say in Tehillim, right? That hu yinagenu almus. Hashem will lead us almus, over death, right? So Zrizus. So the medrash says Zrizus with alacrity ki ilain ulemta, like these young ones. Kamadat Omar besoich alomais toifefus. I don't know why he brings it like this, but anyways, ki Zrizus he midas shleimus godel, because Zrizus is an expression of great perfection. Asher tivoy shel ha'odam oino mimeno ata, that the nature of a person prevents from him right now. Umishim is gaber v'toifes bo. So anyways, almus, the Gemara learns. I never understood that Gemara really so well, but the Gemara learns almus. Al tikra almus ela alemus. Alemus means youthfulness, right? So youthfulness actually, again, I don't know why you need it. Meaning the whole point of the Gemara is to say youthfulness in order to say that a person who has Zrizus is going to be above death, which is really what the pasuk is saying. The pasuk is saying hu yinahagenu al mus, that Hashem will guide you over death, meaning above death. So I don't know why the Gemara feels the need to read almus as alemus, which means youth, to give me the message which the pasuk is really saying, that you're going to overcome death. But the point of the Ramchal, right, bringing this concept is he's saying that Zrizus, being that it's overcoming your physical nature of heaviness, it really is life. It's really above death. It's really vitality. Real vitality is fighting laziness, right? When you overcome laziness, that's it's being alive, right? Being not dead. Kamodat Omar besoich aloma is toifefos. Okay, ki Zrizus hu midas shleimus godla shaktiva shalom einam mimenim ata. Umishim is gaber v'toifes born. So anybody who overpowers his nature, v'toifes, and grabs onto this midah of Zrizus, Kol mashu yuchel, as much as he is able, right? I don't get it. What does that mean with kol mashu yuchel? As much as he is able. I'm not sure what those words mean. Meaning, why am I bothered by that? Because, I mean, obviously you grab onto a midah as much as you are able. I mean, what do I need Ramchal to tell me as much as you are able? So either one of two things. Either means, listen, you're probably not going to overcome laziness, but do as much as you can, and that will help you overcome. Or one thing is, the other option is there's only one way to overcome laziness, is by not giving into it in an inch. You know, you call mashu yuchel. You have to like fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it. As soon as you let it hold a little bit, you already lost. The only way to overcome laziness is by total and relentless, pursuit of just eradicating it completely. When you can eradicate it completely, then it becomes not part of your nature, and then you could rise above. So then in the future, right? So if he lives a life of where he fights it every single second, then in the future, then he will get to this midah of almus, right? Of being really alive, right? Of being above death. Right? So he's saying really now it's pretty clear. He's saying both of these things. He's saying that really your laziness, right, is so part and parcel of your physical nature that really you can never erase. You can never eradicate it. It's really part and parcel of you. But if you fight it to the point of kol mashayuchol, right, of as much as you are possibly able, right? So then, in the future, you will be given the reward as if you eradicated it, right? Because, right, that's what it says. It says, Yizkil obe'emes, in the future you will be zoiche, in reality, in truth, you will be zoiche to that midah. Asher haboyres barach yitne lo scharoi, Hashem will give you the reward. Why? Cheiluf mashishtadel. Whatever effort you put in, achareo bizman avodosa. In return for whatever effort you actually did. You did the most you could. You didn't eradicate it, but Hashem will give you the effort, the reward as if you eradicated it. Okay? So again, it's quite crazy. It says Zrizus is never really complete and it's never really done. Right? According to this Ramchal. It's not like, it's like Zihirus is maybe something that a person can acquire as a midah. Zrizus is more like a constant war. It's never resolved. It's a constant war. Okay, so that's the first Zrizus. The first Zrizus is jumping at the opportunity. And again, I guess we understand. I mean, at least now it's a little more understandable why we're constantly, failing at this. At least I feel like I'm constantly failing at this because it's not something that you can train. You can become, as you grow older. Obviously, you get less lazy. You learn to be more responsible. But at the end of the day, it's a never-ending battle. That's the takeaway here. Okay, next. Zrizus achar as cholas hamaisa. Now we have the second type of Zrizus, the second division of Zrizus, which is after the beginning of the Maisa. Shekivan she'ochas b'mitzvah, now that you grabbed onto the mitzvah, yimaher lehashlim, so you should rush to complete it, v'loy lehakel me'alov, and not to lighten from himself. Commission yisava lehashlich me'alov masoi, and should not act towards it like somebody who is trying to lighten the burden that's on top of him. Right? So there's two elements here. There's one element within this Zrizus of let's not call it post, let's go during the action, right? Within the Zrizus of during the actions, there's two elements. One element is that you have to carry it out to completion. And again, the same thing that prevents you from starting it may prevent you from completing it. And then there's a second thing is your attitude towards doing it. You may be carrying out to completion, but the way are you carrying out? Are you carrying out with your all of your being, or are you carrying it out with being dragged into it, so to speak? Right? Elami yirosoi pain lo yizke ligmaroisoi. But he should be fearful that maybe he will not be able. Did I read this right? Hold on. No, I did not read this right. I read this wrong. My apologies. He should. I'm sorry. Shekivan she'ochas b'mitzvah. Once he grabbed onto the mitzvah, yimaher lahashlim, so he should rush to complete it. But he's saying, how do you rush to complete it? Not like somebody who wants to complete it in order to get rid of it. Rather, you should rush to complete it as somebody who's afraid that he might not be able to complete it. He's not saying that. He didn't say that second point that I invented. that your attitude has to be like with your full. I mean, maybe that's included, but that's not his main point. His main point is that your rushing to complete the mitzvah should not be driven by your desire to get rid of it. Your rushing to complete the mitzvah should be driven by your desire to complete it. Okay. And this is many of our sages many times mentioned. Kol maschil b'mitzvah, anybody who starts the mitzvah, ve'eina goymer reisa, and it's not completed, koiver ishto yibonov, he will bury his wife and his kids. That's pretty harsh. Right, so they bring over here that the Medrash talks. This we learn from Yehuda. Yehuda said, "Why should we spill blood? Right? Why should we spill blood? Let us sell him. He should have carried out the mitzvah to completion. Why should we spill blood? Let us return to his father. Since he did not say, let us return to his father, he lost his wife and he lost 2 of his kids. That's the Medrash. Because it's a strange Medrash. Why? Because over there, it's not that he wasn't punished with the loss of his wife and his kids because he didn't complete a mitzvah, like he didn't put in tefillin that day. He lost his wife and his kids because by not returning Yosef to his father, he made Yaakov lose a son. Right? So Midah connected Midah from making Yaakov lose a son, so he also lost a son. He lost 2 sons because of maybe kefil, whatever the case may be. But the point is over there's a reason why one follows the other. Ramchal makes it sound like the act of incompletion, right? The act of incompletion causes this okay, so that's a question. But in general, I mean, we understand that when the Gemara talks about such heavy punishment for something that is seemingly minor, right? If a person started the mitzvah and then failed to complete it, he's just so, wow, he's going to lose his wife and his kids. I mean, I'm sure every single person alive today started some mitzvah and did not complete it, So it's not unheard of. So So obviously, there's a message that the Gemara is trying to tell us, right? There is some kind of a connection between completion, right? Meaning that my wife and my kids are continuation of myself, right? By me marrying my wife and by me having my kids, they extend my future, right? If I started the mitzvah, and then I didn't bring it to completion, so then I failed to close the chain, right? That's the symbol of it, right? The symbol of not closing the chain is, I guess, is similar to not continuing your family chain. Okay. Okay, continuing. Eina mitzvah nikris elal shem goimra. The mitzvah doesn't get the name, but rather of a person who completes it. Again, that's also a question. Do you call the mitzvah by the person who finished it, or by the person who started it? Right? A person who started the mitzvah, a person who finished it. What? I mean, sometimes this way and sometimes that way. That's the truth. Again, when the Gemara says "Ein a mitzvah," "Ain's this," "El or this," usually that means, I don't know how to say it, but almost the opposite of what the Gemara means to say. "Ein a mitzvah nikras elal shem goimra." The mitzvah is not right because we call it Solomon's temple, right? In Hebrew, we call it Solomon's temple or David's temple. Solomon's temple, right? Even though the mitzvah was started by David HaMelech. Right? Okay, V'omer Shlomo HaMelech Olav HaSholom Chazisa Ish Mohir B'Malachto Lufnei Melochim Is Yatzov. If you see a skillful man, Ish Mohir is really means skillful, but we could also, literal translation is fast, right? Ish Mohir B'Malachto, in his work, Lufnei Melochim Is Yatzov, he will stand before kings, Bal Yisyatze Lufnei Chashukim, and he will not stand before darkened ones, in other words, lowly people. Right, this is so this medrash connects this pasuk to the story of Rav Chanina ben Doisa, right? Rav Chanina ben Doisa wanted to bring something to the Beis Hamikdash. He didn't have any money. He went and he got some kind of a rock. He chiseled it. He perfected it, and he wanted to bring the Beis Hamikdash. It was too heavy for him to carry it. And then some people magically appeared, and they magically transported them to Yerushalayim, and he brought the stone with them to Yerushalayim, and then they disappeared, right? So over there, the story is if a person starts a mitzvah and he has no ability to complete it, Hashem will orchestrate and he will help him complete it. Right? So that's what Ish Mohir. So there is, okay. But over there he was physically prevented from completing it, but his whole being wanted to complete it as much. He did whatever he can do. He was looking for workers. He was trying to do whatever he can do to complete the mitzvah. Right? So the Chachamim use this pasuk in reference to Shlomo himself, because he did whatever he needed to do, he could do in order to complete the building of the Beis Hamikdash, and he did not get lazy in it, or to delay it. The same pasuk was also referred to Moshe Rabbeinu because he hurried with the building of the Mishkan. Really, you'll find all the actions of tzaddikim tamid b'mehirus. They are always with speed, with alacrity. And the truth is, I always heard about Rabbi Yitzchak Zilber that wherever he was constantly running, no matter, even to his old age, he was like constantly on the run. He didn't walk. Avram Kosov boy, by Avram Avinu we find Vayemaher Avraham Oihale El Sora. He ran to Sora. Vayomer Mahari Ugois. Right. So the guests were already by him. So he already started the mitzvah. He didn't slow down. He rushed to take care of it. Vayitan Elanar Vayemaher. Again, he gave it and he rushed him. Rivka. It says Vatimaher Vatar Kada. Right. When she wanted to give water to Eliezer's camels, she rushed to do it. Midrash Vatimaher Haisha, and by who is this? This is by Manoach, no? Hold on. Yeah, right. By Shimshon's mother, right, Eishes Manoach, she ran and told her husband that a malach came to her. Melamed, we learn from here, Shekol Ma'aseihem Shel Tzadikim B'Hirus. All actions from Tzadikim are done with speed. Asher Lo Yitna Hefsek Zman. Again, they would not give an interruption of time. Loy al Hascholas HaMitzvah, not before the beginning of the mitzvah, but Loy al Hashlamosa, and not to the end of the mitzvah. Right? So in other words, we don't want the whole concept of Zman should not enter into the performance of the mitzvah, not in the beginning and not towards the end. Very little left, but okay, let's see. I guess we'll stop here. Right, then he talks about this idea of external being me'oras apnimius, internal. Okay, so what's the takeaway? What is the takeaway? I don't know. Okay, so for me, the biggest takeaway is that you never graduate from laziness. It's a constant battle. That might be my personal biggest takeaway. But the point of Zrizus is, like he said, this in the end, and as we saw from Bitzel Gutner, is to not allow any time element to enter, not before the mitzvah and not during the mitzvah. That's really like a good summary of what Zrizus is. Zrizus is the fight against time. Zrizus at its core is a fight against time. It's a fight against laziness, but it's really a fight against time. Okay.